It's the middle of the night. You're crouched beside a fire, and you are not alone. Two other women are there. One kneels behind you, bracing your back. Another waits in front, hands ready. Nobody sent for them. They just came the way people always come the moment word got out. You are about to give birth. And for reasons your body has carried for over 1,000,000 years, you cannot do this by yourself. That single fact that human childbirth almost never happens alone in any society anyone has ever documented sounds like a cultural choice at first. A comfort thing, something people do because, yeah, it's kind or traditional or expected. It isn't. It's biology. And the reason takes a strange turn. Start with the obvious part first. Biological anthropologists Wenda Trevathan and Rosenberg spent decades studying why human birth looks so different from every other primate's. Their answer has a name: the obstetric dilemma. Somewhere around 6 million years ago, early hominins started walking upright. That single shift reshaped the pelvis from the wide-open bowl still found in chimpanzees and gorillas into a narrower, more efficient frame built for a two-legged stride. At the same time, a completely separate evolutionary pressure was pushing in the opposite direction. The human brain was expanding generation after generation, demanding a bigger skull to carry it. Two trends, each one essential to becoming human, both converging on the exact same narrow space at the exact same time. Most people stop the story there. A tight pelvis, a big head, a hard fit. Uncomfortable, but manageable. Something a woman could push through alone the way a deer or a chimpanzee does. Here's where it gets stranger. Trevathan's research uncovered something almost no one expects. In most primates, the infant is born facing the same direction as the mother. A chimpanzee mother can reach down mid-birth, guide the baby by hand, clear its airway herself, lift it directly to her own chest, all without assistance, the same way she'd catch anything else falling toward her. Human infants do something different, and the difference comes directly from that same narrow, twisted pelvis. To fit through it at all, the baby's head typically enters facing sideways and rotates as it descends so that by the time of delivery, most human infants emerge facing backward away from the mother, looking toward her spine rather than up toward her face. Try to picture what that means for a woman alone in the dark, exhausted from hours of labor. She cannot easily see a baby facing the wrong way, let alone reach it cleanly. Guiding an infant out along the wrong angle risks bending the neck in a direction it was never built to bend. Pulling too early before the shoulders have rotated into position can tear tissue that was never designed to tear that way. The very geometry that makes human intelligence possible, that impossibly large skull, that impossibly narrow passage, is the same geometry that makes solo delivery genuinely dangerous in a way it simply isn't for almost any other primate on the planet. So evolution did something it rarely does so cleanly. It built the need for help directly into human anatomy, not as an afterthought, but as a structural feature of what it means to be born human at all. And once you know where to look, the evidence isn't rare. It's everywhere. Anthropologist Marjorie Shostak spent years living among the Jew hoansi, a san hunting and gathering community in the Kalahari, and documented something remarkable in her fieldwork for the book, Nisa Birth. There was never treated as a solitary event. Older women experienced mothers sometimes, a woman's own mother gathered by default, not by request. It wasn't scheduled. It wasn't announced. People simply arrived. The same way people arrive when they hear a fire crackling and know exactly what it means. Researcher Frank Marlowe found comparable patterns decades later studying the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last populations still living a hunting and gathering life today. Different continent, different language, different diet, different gods, different everything except this one detail, repeating like a signature across the entire span of human geography. That's not a coincidence you can explain with culture alone. Cultures vary wildly. Diets vary. Rituals vary. Gods vary. This one behavior doesn't. When something stays constant across every environment humans have ever occupied, that's usually a sign you're not looking at a custom. You're looking at a piece of hardwired biology wearing a cultural costume. And this is the part that should genuinely surprise you. Modern clinical medicine, working from a completely different direction with no interest in ancient anthropology at all, arrived at the exact same conclusion. A major body of research published in the Cochrane Database of systematic reviews looked at what happens when a woman in labor has continuous one-on-one support from another person throughout the entire process compared to standard hospital care alone. The results were not subtle. Labor tended to be shorter. Fewer interventions were needed. Women reported better outcomes across the board. A modern research institution spent years and enormous resources rediscovering something a Jew hoansi grandmother already knew without ever needing a study to tell her. It's a strange kind of confirmation science catching up to something the species already knew how to do. Now go back to the fire. The woman kneeling behind you isn't performing a ritual. Her hands are doing a specific practical job. Your own hands cannot reach bracing your weight so your legs don't have to hold everything alone. The woman in front is watching for the exact backward-facing moment Trevathan described, ready to guide, not out of tradition, but because the geometry demands it. The smoke stings faintly, catching low across the ground where the night air is coolest. Somewhere close, someone is boiling water over a second smaller fire, more out of habit and readiness than any specific instruction. A dog shifts in the dark, past the firelight unbothered because this has happened before and will happen again. Nobody debates whether help is appropriate. The question never comes up. Of course, there is help. There has always been help. Here's the assumption most people are quietly carrying into this video. That pain relief monitoring, a second set of hands, that these are modern inventions, comforts layered on top of something ancient humans handled alone and unaided the way nature supposedly intended. Something we've made soft, maybe even a little unnecessary. It's the opposite. The soft version is the one where a woman is left alone. That's the historical anomaly, not the ancient norm. For the overwhelming majority of the roughly 300,000 years, anatomically modern, humans have existed. Solitary birth would have been the strange exception, not the default. If anything, it's isolation that had to be invented, which makes the modern hospital birth room oddly one of the more isolated versions of this experience in the entire span of human history. Fluorescent light instead of firelight. A partner maybe, and a rotating cast of medical staff who are strangers until the day itself, shift-changing in and out of a room they've never stood in before. Compare that to a Yu Huanzi birth, where every hand present has done this before, has been the person in labor before, and will very likely do it again for someone else next season. The knowledge in that room isn't written down anywhere. It's carried in the hands of the people standing in it. That doesn't make either version wrong. Medicine has saved lives that ancient birth practices simply could not have saved, and no honest account of this story pretends otherwise. But it does make one of them, for the first time in the story of our species, genuinely new. A birth attended mostly by people who have never given birth themselves, surrounded by machines instead of memory. That combination has existed for perhaps a century. It is by every measure that matters here, an experiment still in progress. You're crouched beside a fire and you are not alone. Not because someone decided to be kind tonight. Because for over 1 million years, being alone in this exact moment was never really an option your body allowed. The people beside you aren't a comfort added on top of biology. They are the missing half of it, arriving right on time the way they always have in every generation that came before. This one going back further than fire itself, further than language, further than almost anything else you'd call human.